lucky to have another very notable ASC director of photography, Roberto Schaefer. Not only ASC, but AIC. In fact, Roberto is not just an American cinematographer, he's an international cinematographer. And he's also a member of the group Imago, very involved in that group, and Camera Maj. He has a lot to do with putting that on every year.
And in case people don't know what Imago is, because a lot of people here don't, it's the International Federation of Cinematographer Societies, not individual cinematographers, but the societies from, I forget how many countries we have now, but it started as a European federation that Luciano Tovoli was basically put the genesis for, but it's grown out of Europe. It's in Asia, South America, North America, believe it or not, Eurasia, Australia, New Zealand, China is part of it, and Southeast Asia. So it's pretty comprehensive.
And you've lived and worked in most of those places. No, I know.
I have.
Literally, you worked in Italy for years and years, right?
I lived and worked in Italy for 10 years.
And
but
England,
and
Great
England, I can't get hired here. I keep getting hired in England. It's maybe it's a sign of the times that there's more production going on over there, but it's although I just did a movie in Savannah, and I'm doing one right now here in Los Angeles.
And Roberto not just shoots huge movies like the James Bond movie Quantum of Solace and Finding Neverland, but he also does indie features that get a huge amount of recognition, like Monsters Ball. That was wonderful, and that was like a $4 million.
No, it was two and a half million. They lied. Yeah.
But it's still, it's you know, what's that? It's a small fraction of what Quantum of Solace. So you have experience.
Yeah, Quantum of Solace was 100 times.
Yeah. You have experience shooting the big movies and indie movies, which is more my world. Tell us how they differ.
Well, it depends on who the big movie is. Like on Quantum of Solace, you had producers who were so smart and so generous and good, and knowing that if you needed it, if you had something that was going to work on the screen, that was going to elevate the movie, they would give it to you. There was no problem. There's other big movies where, I'm not going to say any names or the names of the movies, but where the people in charge of the money are just, they act like there's no money. And you have to beg and bow and scrape, and even then you don't get it all the time. Then you get some small independents, and they're just like, we know that you're doing this or what we need for the movie from your department, from all the other departments, and we make it happen. You know, like the movie I'm on now just started, we're prepping, it's a $3 million budget. Small director, writer, producer, and he knows what he wants. He's a good person to work with, we're just prepping, but it's $3 million, and you know, it's a stretch. It's a script that they always want more. You know, this however much money you have, they always want more.
But it's, instead of 40 footers, it's 5 tons, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get them to be 10 tons. We're shorty 40s. Because we have, some of the locations are tough. You know, it's that kind of stuff. But everybody's really, you know, like I've kind of gotten, finally, after so many years, it took me a long time to realize this, but you got to interview the producers and like them as much as they want you. Because if the people aren't nice and the crew isn't good and they don't get along, it's not worth being there for me. It's just life's too short for that.
The Kite Runner, you got a lot of recognition for that. Can you tell us a little bit about that movie?
There was it was an amazing book, and the screenplay that was written from the book was pretty much hit all the notes of the book. And we shot it in Western China, out in the Xinjiang province, which has become, unfortunately, infamous for the oppression of the Uyghur people. And one of the reasons we shot there was because the Uyghurs have a physical similarity to Afghanis. It's the same basic melting pot of the stands, Afghanistan, Pakistan, all that. And Kashgar and Tashqargan, which is part of Xinjiang, are right on the border with Pakistan. So we were out there for 5 months in pretty not easy conditions, but your money goes a long way when shooting in a place like that. And so we had what we needed. It was a lot of visual effects. They did a great job. Kevin Todd Haug did every kite in that movie is VFX. Wow. We didn't have one single real kite. they were there. There was some shot on the rooftop, the one thing, the wide shot, but they couldn't get them up in the right place at the right time, so they replaced everything. And it was, it was working with completely, almost completely unknown, just not actors. The kids, the only ones who were real actors were Khalid, who played the grown-up who goes back to get the kid, his wife, and his father, Hamayun, who's phenomenal. Really great people. And everybody really, it was a hard work, but I had a great crew. And it was beautiful landscapes, beautiful everything. Unfortunately, the villages in Kashgar, the old town that we shot in a lot, the government has raised since then because they're...
Because you were there.
Because we were there, yeah. It had nothing to do with the Uyghur oppression. It's because we were there.
What was the most fun you ever had on a movie?
Best in Show.
Oh, yeah.
For your,
I didn't mention that you did a lot of
For your-
comedies with Christopher Guest.
for your consideration, was probably even more fun than Best in Show.
Comedies are fun.
And Miles Ahead. I absolutely had a great time on that. It was also a low budget. It was stretching, it was tough, but working with a masterful director, actor like Don Cheadle was, it's a pleasure. And all the actors were wonderful. It was a great experience. I've been lucky, not always. Had a few stinkers, but yeah, I'd say
Those are the ones you don't name, right?
those are the ones I don't name, right? Look on my resume, you won't see them.
Now, I know you came up a little bit as a Steadicam operator. That surprises me.
By force, by necessity, I should say, by necessity. I moved to Italy, so I followed in Nancy's footsteps in a way. I was in New York City. I came from art school. I tried to get into NABIT, but they refused to let me in because I supposedly failed the loading test on a Mitchell NC camera. So I was hanging around. I was doing documentaries. I was doing feature news stuff for all the European news organizations there. And I inherited for the use of an Eclair ACL because my mentor at the time, Flip McCarthy, who was a local DP, and his father, Kevin McCarthy, the actor, he brought me in. I did a low-budget film with him up in Provincetown as a camera assistant. The funny thing there was I hadn't really been a camera assistant, but I was working at the movie theater in Provincetown where I was living for years, and the people there knew that I knew something about cameras. I'd gone to art school and I shot some stuff with a Bolex. So they told Flip when he came to town to do this almost no-budget movie, he was told he would be given a first AC. So he asked around, he was panic, there's nobody there. They said, you do it. And I said, okay, I'll try. I had never really done it before, so I worked on this movie with him and we really got along great. And he said at the end of the show, he said, if you want to work in movies, you're good, come to New York, I'll help you. And he gave me 6 months in his loft. I could stay there because one of his roommates was gone, and he had me assist him on all these news things for Italian television, French television, German. So I got a lot of experience. It was feature documentary stuff for the news, traveling to Colorado and all over places. And eventually one day, he and his father had put together a screenplay that he wanted to direct, and his father was going to be in. And he just said, I don't want to shoot anymore. I want to concentrate on all of this. So here's the ACL, you shoot. And it was a limited one because it only had 200-foot mags.
Oh, that's small.
He didn't
5
have
minutes of film?
Yeah. So we were able to rent occasionally the 400-foot mags when we needed them, but he only owned the 200-footers. That goes to, I met some girls from Italy who were going to art school in New York and film school, and I met them through an Italian friend of mine there. Anyway, eventually one of them asked me to come to Italy and shoot a film for her. So that's how I got to Italy. I went to shoot this no-budget feature film. It's like a 50 million lira, so it was at the time, I think it was like $28,000 given by the government. Shoot the whole thing on that money. But we rented from Cinecittà their first Aton LTR-7 with a set of super speeds. And shot the whole movie with that. I fell in love with the camera. But living in Rome, I was a foreigner. It wasn't easy getting work, except for the friends that I knew. So I decided to go to Milano They said you can work there really easily because you don't need permits, because you do commercials there. It's one day in, one day out. They'll just give them your New York address. They'll send you the check there. So I moved up to Milano, and I realized that there was a friend called me and said, I've got this Steadicam for sale if you know somebody who wants one. This was the same guy who introduced me to all these girls. And it was
It's a good friend.
It was a Steadicam 1, Model 1, that had come in through the back door somewhere. And I said, okay, let me ask around. I didn't find anybody who really somebody wanted to split it with me. And then finally I said, it was $5,000. I said, I'll do it. So I asked my mom if I could borrow $5,000 from her. I bought the Steadicam, and I just went to 2 of courses that Garrett did in Italy, and decided, that got me into so many things in Milano and Rome, shooting for American features that were over there, shooting commercials, shooting everything, because there were only 3 other Steadicam operators in Italy at the time. There was Massimo Vitali, who I had worked with as an assistant, Nicola Pecorini, who was probably the top, and one other guy, Roberto Cardinale, Claudio Cardinale's brother in Rome, and then a couple of others came in while I was doing it, but I got a lot of calls.
Yeah.
And I did it for 7 years. I loved doing it.
How's your back?
Fine, it was better then. It was better then because it's, you stand up right, you get the exercise, it's like being in the gym every day. And finally, and I had to rejig the thing because it was the one was not, there was a lot of things you couldn't do with it. I remember I did a commercial with Joe Pitka for Mercury, and he wanted me to do that, and I couldn't do it because the gimbal didn't go all the way. So I had to bend my whole body over. So I ended up meeting with Garrett and Jesse from Cine 60, or whoever.
Before Tiffin was
Before
involved.
Tiffin, yeah. And Garrett told me, well, you can cut the thing, you can do some things to it, don't be precious about the metal, here's an idea. And so I did. I found a machine shop in Milano who did all this stuff for me so I could elongate it and twist it and do all that stuff. And it was great, and it really made it much more usable. And I got a new gimbal for it and became pretty proficient. And then I decided to move to Hollywood because things were going down in Italy economically. And a friend said, come over here.
And you transitioned to DP around that time?
I was doing mixed in Italy, DP and Steadicam, but when I got here, I said, I did 2 jobs where I did both, and I said, I'm not doing that again. It's not for me. So I gave most of the Steadicam to my camera assistant at the time who wanted to become a Steadicam operator, and just really never looked back.
Well, finally, I know we have a lot of cinematographers here. Some are coming up. What advice would you give them, besides finding another career?
Yeah. It's a different world now, as we all know. I think for everything in my life, I think I got really lucky with everything: music, arts, opportunities to work in the movie business and stuff to work. I've seen the best bands. That's. But I don't know. It's tough. I wouldn't want to be starting now. It's a tough because there's so many more people coming out of every film school in the world. Every city has 7 film schools, and digital makes it that people can just show up and you see what's on the monitor, and you know that you haven't blown the exposure or whatever, because like I did on a couple of jobs back then.
But it was a big deal when we came up to be able to have access to shoot film.
Oh,
because it cost so much to go through.
yeah.
Per
I
minute,
did some at art school, and in those days I can get black and white 16 pretty cheap with processing included, and did stuff. But it was, it was a different world again.
But you can get, experience so much easier now.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, get experience. Thing is that I would say is love the projects that you sign on to. Really want to be there. Because they're not always going to be that much fun day to day, but you got to have passion for it, and really like the people you're working with. To me, that's come down to the most important thing: is like the producers, like the director, like everybody. Be friendly, have friends, have it as a family. Because if every morning you're getting up and you're going, I don't want to deal with those.
Should have gone to dental school.
Yes, exactly. Or I should have gone to become a psychologist like Nancy.
And, it's paid off for you making solid connections with directors, Christopher Guest, and then That's the one that you did Monsters Ball with?
with Mark Forster.
Yeah, you did a lot of stuff
I
with
did
him.
9 movies with Mark.
Yeah.
We did 2 before Monsters Ball.
So you get in,
Yeah, and that's...
have a great
but that-
relationship with the director, and they take you along.
Something that I used to say and talk to a friend when I was single and living in Venice and couldn't get a date. My friend would say, well, you got to go out to bars and clubs and places and meet people. You're not going to get a date sitting at home. And it's the same kind of thing I found at the time to get jobs
yeah.
and to get interconnected. And nowadays, I mean, social media makes it very different. Then you had to go, so I was spent like 3 nights a week in Hollywood going to different clubs and different bars and things and being introduced to people and trying to meet people in the business and getting, you know, recommendations and just personal contact is really important, and just clicking with somebody, you know, really hitting it off.
Well, thank you, Roberto. Thank you so much for coming today.
pleasure.
I know you have a very tight schedule. You're heading to Europe tomorrow, is that right?
No,
Or-
no, I canceled that.
Oh, okay.
I was supposed to go to London for the Imago conference, but I had to cancel it because I took this job. And now
Works great.
I'm in prep for another 2 weeks, and then we shoot for 5 weeks starting the end of February, all in LA, which is a mixed blessing. The good thing about being on location is you don't have to deal with home life or anything, and you're taken care of. You have a hotel, you just, you know, forget all that other stuff, and usually somebody picks you up and drives you to set. Here it's, I mean, we're shooting in Silver Lake. I live in Venice.
Oh, it's going to take a long time. to
It
get
takes
there
me
every day.
an hour every day each way to go back and forth, but I'd love to, if anybody has any questions, can I open
Yep.
it to questions? If
Let's
anybody
take a
wants to know
couple
anything?
questions. What
I'll-
year did he move back to Los Angeles?
1992, just when the house, the apartment condo that I moved into with a British costumer friend that I knew, overlooking all of LA, still could see smoke rising from the riots. It was
Oh.
really, it was just after the riots were over. But that's why I moved to Venice. I wanted to be where the air was cleaner.
I didn't know if you were talking about Venice, Italy, but you live in
Yeah,
Venice, California
Venice,
now, right?
California, yeah, and New Orleans.
Yeah.
I have a very tight connection with New Orleans because of starting with Monsters Ball, and my wife was the costumer for Billy Bob on Monsters Ball. We met on that, and I've
Beautiful
been
movie.
living there and
Beautiful
going back
movie.
and forth all the time.
That's a change for
have-
women on your cruise.
Well, I've always been proactive in trying to hire women on my cruise. They haven't, in the past, they haven't necessarily been available in the positions that were high enough. So it was always like a second AC, occasionally an AC or a loader. I did have a couple of electricians, not a gaffer at the time. But, I mean, I see it's way more open now, and people are much more open to it. And, I mean, the pool is there. So it's just a matter of connecting, and meeting, getting introduced, meeting. And I know there's organizations, the AIC, everybody, Imago, have a lot of diversity committees and trying to put things together and have, I know Women in Film used to have, I think they used to have like, Women in Media. Well, I remember when it was Women in Film.
They have that
was-
too?
It's a different, oh, okay, because I knew the woman who, okay. Okay, so, and then there's also, I have a friend who's a Steadicam operator in Atlanta who has an app called BIPOC. And you can go on there, and if you want to find diversity crew by race and gender, there's all there, and
Yeah,
it tells
cool.
whatever city you're in, you can check and see who's available, who's there. It's a really good handling, it's BIPOC. Yeah.
How do you choose your gear package
For
when
when
you're
I
starting a
first started
picture?
a project? Yeah, it's funny because I'm going through that right now. The director that I'm working with on this one said his first thing was, I really would love to shoot 35. And I go, okay, first talk to your line producer and see if you can afford it. Because it's a $3 million picture, and there's a lot of locations, there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of stuff to do. And it's basically his first direction. He directed pretty much a low budget, like a slasher kind of film, but he's also directing it and the lead actor. So I'm thinking, okay, that's a big challenge right there. I'll entertain it. But then I said, do some budgets and see what you can come up with. I personally now prefer to shoot digital 99% of the time because my friend Roger Deakins, as he says, why should I shoot film anymore? I can make it look exactly like film anytime. I believe it. I did tests for another movie. I shot film and 2 digital cameras, transferred the digital cameras back to film, transferred that back to digital for DCP, and projected it and tried to have somebody tell me the difference, what was shot on the film originally and what was shot on the digitals. And you couldn't tell. And I wasn't even getting into live grain or any of that stuff. So balancing all that out, balancing the budget, then I hired my gaffer, who's, like, for me, I want somebody who knows more than I do, who has more experience and who's better. So I really lucked out on this. Can I name names?
Sure.
Jim Planette is
Oh,
going
wow.
to gaffer me on this. I mean, I hit the jackpot. So I'm going to leave it up to Jim when we look at locations. I have my ideas, but he says, and he just came off of another very low budget film, and he says, we can't have it, it's going to be a small crew, we can't have these big lights and stuff, so let's make it work so we're not stretching too far that we can't do. So when we do the location scouting, I have my ideas, but I'll let him say, you know, we should use this, we should use that, this will get you the look you want, and try to find locations when we're scouting. I work with the location scouts as much as I can. I tell them, please, when you're taking pictures before I'm even on, for the director to look at, try not to look at south-facing buildings for day exteriors. When you take the pictures, put a compass or use Artemis or something that shows the the compass direction on the picture. So when I'm looking at them, I can understand what it's going to be like. I can steer, and then we go look at the location and say, okay, this is good, but we're going to spend way too much time trying to cut the light or trying to do this in this location. We'll be much better off in this location, and if it works for you, dramatically, I try to do that just to make it work for the Quantum of Solace. It didn't really matter. We had $250 million or whatever.
Throw money at it,
We
fix it.
we had enough in our DI that I could take down I could repaint buildings if I had to. There was a lot there. This kind of thing, it's just trying to balance everything and figure out what's going to work. So now, I said, we're going to shoot digital. So we're going to do some camera tests. But he really wants to shoot anamorphic. I said, that's fine. We just have to know that some anamorphic lens, and we want the older kind of distortion, really the old anamorphic feel. It's not so much the flares, but it's the bit of the softening on the
Round
edges and the
off,
top.
yeah.
So you feel, the texture of that you can put now with some work in Baselight and Resolve. They have plugins for all of that stuff, but it's very, time intensive. If you can get it organically in the camera, I always prefer that too. So I put together 6 different anamorphic sets that I'm going to test Monday and Tuesday, and look with the director at 2 lenses from each set and just say, what look do you like the best? And then judge also a couple of things that go with it is the speed of the lenses, because some of our locations, night interiors that I can't do a lot of lighting in, which I'm going to have like a 2.2 opening for at least 2 or 3 of the lenses. The 3.5s and the darker ones are going to be hard to work with. Close focus, because some of the older ones, 6 feet away or 3.5 feet away, and some of the stuff we want to do.
Practical location, does it work?
Yeah, we have a bathroom stall for a fight, 3 people in a bathroom stall. I've done it with so I'm pushing for the Venice with the Rialto because I know I can get that against the wall. I've done that I did that in Rattlesnake, where I had a small area, it was shooting anamorphic, but I could put it right against the wall and, make it work. Thinking about that, and then also it was brought up to me today that there's some lens sets have from the 24 or the 32 up to the 100 are so much different shape and weight that if you're working and we're doing a lot of Steadicam, the time to change over from one lens to the next, you could waste 15 minutes because it's such a rebalancing, massive rebalancing. So there are some anamorphic sets that, I know of one that I've tested already, where all of the lenses are the same size, the same weight, and the focus and the mark, it's in the same place for the motors. That
Saves a
kind
lot
of
of time.
consideration. If we like the look,
That's a
it's not-
bonus.
Right. I'm not going to say we have to use these lenses because of that, but if it's between this one and the look is equal from this one, that's much convenient and is production friendly for us, because we're going to be stretched. to get everything in the day. So it's all of that together, then shoot tests, look at the tests as close as you can on your final, how it's being displayed. If it's all being made for streaming, look at it on a monitor. If you're planning on going theatrical, which this one is, we're going to get into a theater and look at it projected, so it's not emissive, but it's projected, and try to judge the test, the lenses from there.
I'm afraid we better wrap it up. We're going to turn into pumpkins here pretty soon. Thank you so much, Roberto.